Hello, and a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on Radio Nigeria Coal City 929 FM. My name is Ikem Okuhu. As Nigeria reflects on another Democracy Day celebration, many citizens are asking important questions. Has democracy truly delivered the dividends people expected? Why do many citizens still struggle with insecurity, unemployment, corruption, poor infrastructure, and lack of trust in leadership? And most importantly, what must change for governance to truly work for the people? Democracy is not just about elections. It is about accountability, justice, participation, development, and leadership that listens to citizens. After decades of democratic rule, Nigerians are eager to see a system that provides better results and restores confidence in governance. To help us examine the future of Nigerian democracy and the reforms needed for better governance, we are joined by a respected public affairs analyst, Mr. Ikem Okuhu, communications expert, author, and journalist. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be on the program. Thank you very much.
Now, for many Nigerians, democracy was expected to improve living conditions, strengthen institutions. Yet, frustration among citizens remains high. Mr. Okuhu, in your opinion, where has democracy succeeded and where has it fallen short?
Democracy has not succeeded in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, what we're practicing in Nigeria now is not in any way resembling democracy. What we're practicing is glorified authoritarianism. The government has been high-handed. The government has not delivered any dividend of democracy, and people are suffering. The government is not paying attention to the needs of the people, but are daily, as it is now, planning for the next election. And that has been the cycle since this democracy dawned in 1999. Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are not getting their votes to count. It is not the will of the people that manifests at the end of the day, after elections. A case in point is the recent by-election that took place in Enugu North Senatorial District, where the entire zone was heavily militarized by thugs, going around from polling booth to polling booth, beating up people. People are suffering. At the end of the day, videos came out where people were sitting down and thumbprinting ballot papers for use in determining the outcome of the elections.
One recurring concern is the issue of accountability in leadership. Citizens often complain that elected officials become distant after elections. Why does accountability remain weak in our democracy system?
This question is correct because there is no accountability in leadership in Nigeria as at yet. Citizens vote during elections, and even though their votes don't count, people who assume positions of leadership believe that they have worked to achieve some personal goals. Anybody who becomes a local government chairman, a state house of assembly member, a house of reps, governor, or even a senator assumes that he is entitled to the spoils of office from funds and resources meant for the development of the people and the empowerment of the citizens. There is no accountability. And these days, the so-called institutions of state that were established to look after corrupt leaders, they are generally cosmetic. They don't hold anybody to account. You hear of a former governor, the former governor of Kogi State, being arrested by the EFCC, for instance, for billions of naira in corrupt enrichment, who eventually comes out to contest for the Senate. The case here, the one of Delta State that was accused of misappropriating sums of money amounting to trillions. But these are human beings now who are going to be elected into the Nigerian Senate in the next cycle because leaders are not held to account. There are tons of cases around the country where people who corruptly enriched themselves while in office were arrested and merely treated like glorified heroes, even released and allowed back into the system. Nigeria is in trouble.
Okay? Sometimes the focus is entirely on politicians, but democracy also requires active citizenship. Do you think Nigerians are fully playing their role in demanding good governance and holding leaders accountable?
Nigerians are doing their best as citizens, but because the system has impoverished the people, they are left with no choice than to just look for anything that will give them the next meal. If somebody has been starving for a week and just managing to scrape meals, and you offer the person 15,000 naira just to vote for the next candidate, that person has no choice because the next meal has just been guaranteed. And then he might just decide, after all, it doesn't mean anything if I vote or if I don't vote, because votes don't count. So those things play a role in taking the people away from the higher need, which is electing credible leadership. And then the corruption in the system has ensured that political parties nominate candidates who are essentially very corrupt to vie for elections. So in many cases, citizens are faced with the option of voting for just anybody because virtually all the candidates for elections have one issue or the other. The people cannot fully and on their own determine, exercise their free choice because their choices don't matter if and when they are allowed to choose. And even when they do, they are given the option of choosing between a thief, a robber, and a murderer. I'm just using these as examples. And then they just look at the situation and say, okay, oh, let me just take whatever is offered to me, and then I'll move on.
Credible elections are the foundation of democracy. Despite improvements in electoral processes, concerns about vote buying, violence, and manipulation still exist. What reforms are urgently needed to strengthen electoral integrity in Nigeria?
The reforms that should come in, if it will work, is to ensure that elections are devoid of money, elections are supervised but by genuinely neutral supervisors and observers, and not the present case where the security agencies are compromised and the electoral officials are also biased on their own. There is hardly anything anybody can do to change the situation except we become sincere in our approach. There is nothing in reform that has not been done. In the last election in 2023, they introduced the beavers and other systems geared to make sure that whatever are taken away from the polling booths count. But it is not working. There were many cases of rigging in the last election, and currently the places where they have conducted by-elections, there are still cases of electoral rigging. If you check the by-election in Suka and the one that happened in Ekiti State, people were intimidated, bullied, shot at. So who will risk their lives just to elect a credible candidate when you know that you are either going to be maimed or even killed when that credible election is going to take effect? So whatever reforms has to come from the leadership. The government must be sincere and serious. Look at the last electoral reform. There are issues of intentional means to make sure that they ensure that the laws which were made won't work. So if there's a bad law, how do you think the citizens will be protected? When the leaders are doing what they like and disenfranchising the citizens and making sure that the citizens are faced with difficult choices is not just going to work. We are merely paying lip service to the issue of talking about reforms on radio and TV and the media when the institutions of state are biased. Even the media are also guilty. The situation where media houses are paid upfront. I have examples in many places, including Enugu, where journalists are not allowed to do their job, and where media houses are encouraged to black out information coming from one side and open the space for other people. That is just going to make the situation a lot more difficult.
Now, corruption continues to affect public trust and development efforts. Why has the fight against corruption remained difficult, despite repeated promises by successive governments?
The fight against corruption has continued to impede development in this country. And that is essentially because the people who are supervising our system, the people who are managing our economy, the people who are implementing all the policies and moves for our political processes are corrupt. They are essentially not wanted by the people because the people didn't put them in the first place. They are evil people of all sorts. And so long as they are there, nothing good will happen.
If you're just joining us, this is Breakfast Show on Coal City 929 FM, Radio Nigeria, Enugu, and we are reflecting on the future of Nigerian democracy. What must change for better governance? The guest is Mr. Ikem Okuhu, communications expert, author, and journalist. And you can join streaming the conversation on coalcityfm929.net.ng. Back to you, Mr. Okuhu. Many analysts say Nigeria's problem is not lack of laws, but weak institutions. What practical steps can strengthen institutions so they function beyond individual political interests?
The institutions in Nigeria are not weak. The people are essentially corrupt. An institution is managed and supervised by individuals. The laws are also implemented by individuals who man positions of government. But when these people are corrupt, all the analysts might speak all the grammar they want, but these guys are there to manipulate the system, to belittle even the system, and at the end of the day, the laws are not applied because the human beings who are to implement those laws are essentially not doing what they are supposed to do.
There is also the argument that insecurity undermines democracy because people cannot fully participate when they feel unsafe. How closely connected are security and good governance?
Insecurity is an issue. Yes, it prevents people from participating. But remember that there is a different level of insecurity where even the so-called free ones cannot on their own express themselves on the ballots. When you have an election and there are thugs beating up people, killing people, it's a level of insecurity because what should prevent me from going out to express myself by voting my choice? That's insecurity. When somebody goes out to vote and he returns injured, that's insecurity. When somebody goes out to vote and he gets killed, that's a massive insecurity. When somebody cannot leave his house because he's afraid that if he goes to the polling unit, an armed thug or even a security official will make sure that his votes don't count. That's as difficult as those who are getting killed by bandits and Boko Haram in many places. It is not only that level of insecurity. Those ones that exist in our localities constitute more serious insecurity. That there's no difference between those ones and the ones in those ungoverned places where people cannot go to their farm, cannot move around freely. They are the same thing. It's insecurity. A security official in an electoral center who openly expresses his bias for a particular candidate is as bad as the one who has failed to arrest a bandit or a Boko Haram or an armed robber. It's as bad as that. Insecurity is a challenge, but where we are looking at the insecurity is the wrong place. Insecurity has taken over everywhere. After all, who are those who consider themselves thugs that kill, harass, beat up people during elections? Are they not the same thing as bandits?
Okay. If you were to identify most critical changes Nigeria must make to achieve better governance and a stronger democracy, what would top your lists?
This is a very difficult question because I've already said it is the individuals who man positions of government that cause these problems. Assuming I am asked to recommend the changes that must have to be made, 1, let the Nigerian elections be supervised by non-Nigerians. Let those who will appoint officials for Nigerian elections, even if we are going to use the ECOWAS as an institution, let them neutrally appoint those. Because a president will appoint somebody who will do his bidding. A governor will find a way to look for state officials that will do his work and protect his interests. And his interests might essentially not be the interest of the people. The people are those who suffer when there is bad government. And when the government appoints those who are going to supervise elections, it becomes a problem. Nigerians will have to be neutral. I mean, government officials, they must have to be neutral, assuming it's essentially going to be them, as it is by the law, that will appoint those who are going to supervise elections. These are the things that can be done. But I know that there's no way a foreigner will be able to do this. It is still going to be government. So I think, as Nigerians say, we might just take recourse to praying for divine intervention, which essentially does not work because God is not an electoral God and he won't come down to supervise. So we'll just keep appealing to the officials of government to do what is right, what is correct, and what is important in the development, political and economic, of the country.
And despite the challenges, many Nigerians still believe the country can move forward. Are you optimistic about the future of Nigeria's democracy?
There is no way Nigeria will move forward progressively with the kind of warped, challenged electoral system we have in Nigeria. It will just be progressing in error. Every election cycle, we keep electing corrupt, wicked, and essentially evil people into office. There's no way any country can make progress under these circumstances. We are not going to make any progress. I'm not going to make any optimistic statement about it. Nigeria will continue this cycle until something happens that changes the system. I don't know what will happen. I don't know when it is going to happen, but I think something has to give to erase the people occupying all the positions from national to local government in Nigeria. That's the only way things can work.
Very insightful thoughts there. Thank you so much, Mr. Ikem Okuhu, communications expert, author, and journalist, for sharing your perspective with us on the future of Nigeria democracy and the urgent need for better governance. Democracy works best when citizens remain informed, involved, and committed to accountability and nation building. As Nigeria marks Democracy Day, the conversation must continue beyond celebration towards meaningful reforms and responsible leadership. Producer is Jude Obu. Supervisor is General Manager Coal City FM, Kate Nebo. And the Zone Supervisor is Deputy Director Programs, Joy Obitilata. Executive Producer is the Zone Director, FRCN, Enugu Zone Station, Dr. Ikechukwu Eze. My name is Ekene Okuhu. And this is Thank You for listening. Stay informed, stay engaged.